For years, radio was a way of, I don't know, but you could privately engage with people, and they felt like you, at the best, they felt like you were a friend of theirs that they would listen to, you know, on a weekly basis.
Mm-hmm. And then how did you sort of work the material of then your podcast with Ricky Gervais, the Ricky Gervais Show? Before, was it sort of pre-planned, or was it like a more organic?
Well, when it was initially, it was just Ricky and I on a radio station, and we would kind of have a quick chat beforehand, and then we would just make our way along. And then we got given this producer, Karl Pilkington, and we asked him a question. He was just there to press the buttons and make tea and things. I forget, we asked him a question, or he was telling a story or something, and he said something about blah, 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 and the neighbours, you know, and they were the neighbours that had a horse in the living room. Anyway, and we were like, what do you mean anyway? Let's go back to the neighbours with the horse in the living room. And for him, that wasn't the interesting part of the story. And we quickly realised that he was sort of gold dust, you know, and he just, almost anything that you asked him was just dynamite, because he just had this completely unique view of the world. You know, we were talking once about celebrities who are only famous because of who their father is. So you know, Callum Best, whose father was footballer George Best, Bianca Gascoigne, you know, lots of, and we were saying they're only famous because of who their dad is, and Karl said, well, you could say the same thing about Jesus. And you're sort of like, yeah, that kind of makes sense in a way. And I remember we asked him once to explain evolution, and he said something like, evolution's easy, isn't it? It's you know, it's like slugs, monkeys, mermaids, man, you know. Of course it is. And so he was just a never-ending, you know, supply of. It's like if you'd found a magic lamp, you know, and you could just rub it every week, and magic would come out, really. And so then it really became a show about him, really. And off we went. And so there was never any planning there. I mean, it was just showing up and winding Karl up until he spoke.
Can you see the Karl Pilkington radio shows coming back at any time?
The thing is with that is, people ask me, like, and I do miss it, and I even now and again listen to some of the old ones. Did everyone hear that question? Is Karl Pilkington's our podcast coming back? I don't think it would work. I think Karl became my little public experiment. It was like a cross between.
Because it felt so unscripted.
It was unscripted.
And that was
totally
what
unscripted.
was.
That is real. It was unscripted. He was like my little experiment, like a cross between. I don't know. Have you seen the film Lawnmower Man? It was like, okay. A cracking reference to anyone who has. But I always thought that Karl was like, I'd found a 10,000-year-old caveman and shaved it, thawed it out, put clothes on it, and then tried to teach it sort of art and philosophy and science. And I think, because he had a good brain, I kept telling him, I said, you've got a good brain. You've got a good brain, you just don't use it, right? And, you know, he found things that interested him, which were spurious and often apocryphal or nonsense, just things on the internet, you know, baby born, half monkey, half. I was going, it's not true, Karl, it's not true. He'd go, look at him. I go, it's just a hairy kid. He's a hairy kid. He's 100% human. He's got a lot of hair. It says here he's half monkey. It doesn't matter what it says there, Karl. It's not half monkey. But I think he became sort of a little bit more worldly wise.
I suppose it's that chemistry that you guys captured in that show. It's hard to replicate that kind of chemistry.
You couldn't contrive it. I discovered him. He opened his little slack jaw once, and he said something, and I just my ears went up like that, and I just thought, this guy's interesting. It's like I found him under a rock. So I don't think it would be the same. I don't think it would be the same. He's sort of retired now.
It doesn't matter how many times I re-listen to it, it's still golden.
I listen to it about, people send me tweets of like clips, and I'd completely forgotten about them, but it's like the first time he heard about something that I might introduce a concept to him, and it's the first time, and I can hear his brain working. It's like a silence where, you know, he'd say things to me like childlike. He'd say things like, he said, "What's the most amazing fact ever?" I go, "What do you mean?" He said, "Tell me something that'll blow my mind." I said, "Well, the nature of infinity is pretty amazing." I said, "Okay, here's one." I said, "There are as many even numbers as even and odd numbers put together." He went, "No." I told him the theory that, you know, the model of the infinity, the infinite amount of chimps working on typewriters would write it was Shakespeare. He wouldn't have that. He said, "Have they read Shakespeare?" I went, "That's nothing to do with it." I said, that's nothing to do with it, right? He'd go, I just don't think they do that." I go, no, take out cognitive reason. There's no choice. They've chosen monkeys to take out choice and reason. They're just hitting away like that, and he just couldn't get it. He couldn't get that it was so I think he's learned his lesson, and I think he's sort of content. I just don't think it would work now.
I wonder if we would have been censored more, because I feel like we're living in an age now that is a little bit more sensitive to things, and maybe we wouldn't get away with it. I don't know.
And kind of then in that vein, especially with An Idiot Abroad, the humour is known to be slightly more tongue-in-cheek, slightly more offensive.
Offensive?
Offensive, slightly.
Okay, no, fair enough. Again, I mean, I don't mean that disingenuously. I think because to me, Karl is like a sort of idiot man-child. It's hard. It's like if a child says something offensive, it seems harder to take it seriously, if you know what I mean. And I think because of knowing Karl, that is sort of how I take it. But I can certainly see from the outside, it looks like he's offensive.
Yeah, but do you think in perhaps like our slightly more politically correct world, it's harder for comedians to sort of do their job because they're having to constantly tread the line and evaluate whether they are being offensive, as opposed to just trying to be funny?
Well, it's tricky, isn't it? Because Karl, you know, for instance, just to take Karl as an example in that show, you know, he's traveling the world and he's reacting authentically to the world around him, and he's ignorant. I mean, he is the little Englander personified. You know, he's a man, I'm not joking, who takes little bags of tea bags when he goes to, you know, Mauritius or something for 2 weeks. You know, he, like my parents might, you know, he's someone who, you know, he's someone who will go on holiday when he chooses to go on holiday and immediately look for a cafe that serves a full English breakfast, you know, while in Spain. And I think, therefore, if you send him to far-flung places, he reacts, you know, in an authentic way. That's not him trying to fish for the controversial thing to say. I think he is just reacting, and I think I don't think it's born from prejudice. I think a lot of it is born from ignorance or naivety, and I think sometimes that lands him into hot water, and other times it's sort of is weirdly sweet. Like I remember him visiting the wall that divides, you know, Israel from Palestine, and him just kind of just baffled by it. Like he was just like, it's so ugly, I don't understand. Like he doesn't understand the nuance of that debate. So to him, he's just this, like a child seeing this monstrosity and kind of not understanding it. And so, you know, it's sweet in a way.
Time at XFM is often seen as being sort of the beginning of the podcast era, and helping sort of pioneer this new sort of resurgence of radio, maybe in a new form of entertainment. Are you proud of that sort of cultural legacy? Did you have anything anywhere that size in mind when you started out?
Well, it's funny, you know, as you walk around the union, you see those pictures of, you know, pioneers in various fields like, you know, Einstein and Malcolm X, and we got Karl Pilkington to, you know, talk about eating, you know, when he's in the jungle. So yes, a pioneer in every sense. But I didn't know what a podcast was, and Ricky suggested there's this new thing where, you know, you download it straight to your iPod at the time. Whatever. Okay, I no idea. And we started doing them, and then it was fun because you had none of the restrictions of radio. It's obviously with radio you're still restricted in what you can say within reason. with a podcast at the time, it was gloves off, you could say anything. And it just suddenly, we were in the Guinness Book of Records for the number of downloads. I mean, that's because there was literally no one else doing it. So it's easy to win a world record when no one else was doing it. But now, as a keen podcast fan, I love it. I'm very proud that we were kind of ahead of the curve on that. And it's funny, I've done people's podcasts since, and they've talked about ours as being kind of instructive and informative for them. And I've met people, I was in Vietnam, I met people listening to the podcast, and people all over the world, because there's a great democratization with that. You can just download it from anywhere in the world and listen, and that's, I think, one of the most exciting things about media now that since when I began, is that it's kind of wide open. It's like an international field. If you want to do a podcast about...
Well, I was just going to say, the reason I asked that question, because you were talking about Karl Pilkington earlier, and I don't know if you would say that he's a clever man, but he was certainly incredibly funny.
He was incredibly funny, but it was his attitude that was funny. And if you took it by himself, there was still the relationship. He still needed a couple of pretentious media types thinking that they were winning, but they were losing, because he didn't care what we thought. So there was still a little bit of a dynamic going on. Not just... If Karl Pilkington went on the radio and said, "All right, world, here's what I think, monkeys and that," people would go, "Why is this bloke telling?" But because he was goaded by a couple of pseudo-intellectual media types thinking that they were embarrassing him, there became a texture to it, and people wanted him to win. People loved him winning. Winning would maybe making me laugh, or being proved right for something that, so there was still something going on. It wasn't just a man saying stupid things. So yeah.
I think in the first series he did not know what was coming, ever. And he was genuinely alarmed. And there's a lot on the cutting room floor of him just angry. Not entertaining for anybody. It's just him, "No, fucking, I'm just fucking..." I think by the second series, in order to persuade him to go, we didn't tell him the specifics, but we would give hints, just because he just refused to go otherwise. But normally the limits, if we were pushing him to the limits, that was not him play acting. That was him almost sort of trying to negotiate with the producers, as to exactly... I mean, the bungee jumping, we wanted him to do the full bungee jumping. He refused, and he does some tiny little... I forget, but doesn't he just jump off from a foot? He jumps from there to there, it's pathetic. And so now, and then of course ultimately he's doing his own stuff now, because he doesn't want to share the money with us, or sensibly be tortured without him knowing it. Because that's the thing, once you make someone a celebrity, they then have a lot of power, and they can turn around and go, "No, why on earth would I eat a sheep's jungle?" But it's not him. It's not him sort of turning it on for the cameras, really. It's not manufactured in that way. Yeah. And I think when you are very tall, and if you've got glasses or whatever, or I don't know, when you're a teenager, you have those insecurities, and I remember someone saying to me once, in an interview, "Do you think that you use humor to control when people laugh at you?" And that might be true. That might be just a fancy way of saying it, but I think there's some truth in that. And I think because I always sort of felt a little bit awkward in that way, it seemed natural to make fun of the way I looked, or the height, or whatever, sort of before anyone else did. And then as we moved into working with other people, certainly when I met Ricky, he was short and fat, and in my mind old. In actual fact, he was younger than I am now, but there we are. And Karl obviously does have a head like a fucking orange. So you use what you can have. Plus also just sort of physicality is the using your body, particularly if you're tall. I think just it's fun.
Leave Karl Pilkington alone.
I love Karl Pilkington.
Yeah, but he must hate you. Does he hate you?
No, he loves me. We're best friends, but I'm just fascinated with him. We're best.
Does he have a family, Karl Pilkington?
What, sorry?
Does he have a family?
He has a girlfriend of, like, I think 18 years.
Children?
Who's no children, no pets. No.
How is he treated in public at large?
He doesn't go in public, really. He puts a little woolly hat on. He doesn't.
Is he well respected among his peers?
I think so. I think people are confused by him.
By him.
Some people think he's a character that I write his lines for him. Some people think
do that thing about where the humans and chimpanzees are...
I've been trying to... He didn't really go to school much. He went to school a couple of times. But over the last 10 years, I've been trying to sort of inflame his imagination. And he's got a good brain. He just hasn't used it. You know what I mean? It's... no, but I was saying to him that chimpanzees are genetically identical to human beings, right? 98.6% genetically identical. And I said, think of that, Karl. 1.4% difference. And Karl said, that's got to be the arse. Isn't that great? So good.
Yeah, I think he's right.
He's right. I was talking to him once, and again, he's fascinated with science and nature, and I was saying, Karl, there's a programme on tonight on television, it's called The Truth About the Giant Squid. And he went, who's been lying about it up till now? He's amazing. He's fantastic. I was telling him once, we did a Christmas podcast about the Nativity, and I said, well, you know, allegedly 3 wise men came on the day of Jesus' birth, and they brought him presents of gold, frankincense and myrrh. And Karl said, well, them presents for his birthday or Christmas.
Wow. That's good.
He's great.
And now you're sending him around the world on a bicycle with the star of the Life's Too Short show.
Yeah, Warwick Davis, who's a dwarf actor. And when I pitched the idea to Karl, we've just finished two series of An Idiot Abroad, where I sent him around the world, and then we're going to do a special. And I thought I'd step it up, and I said to Karl, I said, this time you're going around the world, but on a bicycle with Warwick Davis, the dwarf, in a basket. Right? And he didn't say, well, that's ridiculous. He said, so I'm doing all the peddling.
Ricky, let me ask you about Karl Pilkington. He is this great discovery that you made. There he is. He has a monkey on his back. You found this guy, and basically all you've done is ask him to be himself. He's a fascinating character.
Honestly, I feel like Anthony Hopkins in The Elephant Man.
Yeah.
Like I found this oddity and I'm taking him round the world.
Where did you find him?
By the way, this is true. That's Karl's favourite film, The Elephant Man. He loves it. He said it's weird. I wish I could have met him, but he's dead. Right? There's a bit in it where Anthony Hopkins shows off John Merrick to a group of surgeons, and he's naked, and Anthony Hopkins is going, you see the deformation of the spine, the limbs, and the only things that are totally normal and untouched are the... And Karl went, think of that, the one thing you would want like an elephant, and he gets the head.
But it's funny, Karl's never trying to be funny.
No,
it just everything he says just happens to be genius.
Honestly, he talks in one-liners that comedians would die for, and he doesn't mean them. He just because he's childlike. There's never any malice. He's got no filter. There's no pretensions. I sent him around the world because I knew it would be out of his comfort zone. And
it's a show, Karl Pilkington Around the World. You're doing it again.
Yeah, it's called An Idiot Abroad. He didn't come up with the title. He didn't even know it was the title until he saw the billboards. It's just great. It's like one big experiment. Like, you know, like you muck around and annoy mates?
Yes.
I do that on a global scale.
Yes.
Yeah. We're backed by millions. And I've just sent him around again. Idiot Abroad 3 is coming to Science Channel next year. And
you've teamed him up with someone this time, is that right?
Warwick Davis, who's the dwarf actor. Well, he's an actor. Who's a dwarf.
Yeah. And
that's
you've
not his title, dwarf actor. He's an actor, and he happens to be a dwarf. I don't know why.
That's not on the business.
He doesn't put that on his. Well, it's because I told Karl once that when
Dick Whittington, he apparently walked to London and became mayor, and he took his cat. And Karl went, why would you take a cat? He said, he must have walked twice as far, because cats wander. And he said, also, why didn't he take a little mate? So I've given him a little mate.
And does he gets along with Warwick?
No, he doesn't get along.
They don't get along?
No, they're arguing all the time. It's honestly, it's the best series so far because they just bicker. And Warwick's so gregarious and normal. And I stitched it up, so I always gave Warwick a better room and made sure Karl saw that. And Karl's like next to a toilet with like, it's just so funny. And I was editing the final episode, and Karl asked Warwick the funniest question I've ever heard anyone ask, and he's totally serious. He said to Warwick, he went, "Have you got knees?"
What does he think of this?
And Warwick just laughed. Warwick just went, he went, yes, I have, yes.
Have you watched Black Mirror?
Oh, no, I haven't, but it's...
Have you seen
the one about the body that we did on the podcast?
There's like a couple of them.
No, I haven't heard it. Everyone tweeted me.
There's
I didn't see
stuff.
that one.
So
Shit.
there's Karl from Ricky's podcast, from the old podcast, predicted episodes of Black Mirror. Like they took, or the people who make Black Mirror heard this thing.
Well, I think that's more likely, because Karl had a thing that he wished that when you went to the doctor could put you in a thing, and the doctor could feel what you were feeling, so he'd know, because it's hard to describe the pain. And that was it. And I was going, so hold on, how would this work, right? He had other ideas, like, he said, I've invented something. I go, what? He said, see-through skin. Well, you can't do it. You can't say I've invented something and then go, oh, I don't know the details yet, but just get on with it. Right. You know. So it's mental stuff he came up with, so it was perfect for this. But yeah, I didn't see it, but everyone said
I'm in the middle of that one now. Actually, the doctor who has the thing in his neck. It's really fascinating.
It's just funny because on the YouTube video, like they take from the podcast and the animated series, and they show like the setup for it, and then they show it in the episode, and then they show like you and Steven going like, why would it do this? And then Karl explains this, and then they show it in the episode.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I just had a medical, right? I have it every year, right? And I asked the doctor, right, why still the finger? And they've got now what is it called? Where they can tell if you've got prostate problems from a urine test. He went, but that only one side of it. You can tell if they started, it's early, so the finger's never going away. The finger is never going away.
Oh, you were saying, why do you still... Oh, I thought you wanted to upgrade.
All this stuff, they were taking blood samples, and they were showing everything, but then he said, no, I've got to stick my finger up.
Oh,
right?
you said, why still the finger?
Why still the finger? Yeah, and it's just not going away. They always need someone to feel it first, because it's early stages and that. So
yeah, and you can fidget around in there.
That sounds like there's some doctors though that want to hold back some technology because they really I think manually is the way to do this.
Well, I go there every year, and it's always and this guy is a big guy as well, and I thought, well, he's gonna have a fucking huge finger. Yeah. I was waiting for it, and it's not the worst thing. The worst now as well, because they seem to hurt more. I don't know if I'm more sensitive, or because I'm thinking about it, they sort of shrink. So he has to dig in now and get my balls out of their...
They shrink up?
Like a little turtle going into their shell. You know what I mean?
Testicles,
yeah, because I'm so nervous now about a fucking squeeze.
The skin kind of hornet's nest up against your
honestly,
body.
he has to dig them out now.
I've heard about like somebody's like going back in when they get nervous or cold or whatever. I've never heard of somebody's going back into their body.
It must be a nervous reaction. I don't know. Which is odd, because my are longer and stretchier than they've ever been. But so they should be easy. I mean, he could probably do it from across the other side of the room. But no, they were shrunk. So.